Record. There we go. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Handful of Hope. Today I have Marcia with us, and Marcia is the owner and head chef of Clean Food Delivered. Launched in 2010 as a way to provide fresh, organic, healthy meals to be delivered locally in Los Angeles, offering a wide range of cuisine to accommodate vegan, paleo, gluten, and dairy-free lifestyles, and always organic. As a Gen Xer, her food and hospitality experience covers front and back of the house. From being a personal chef to casual and fine dining, bartending, working as a wine broker, and running my own kitchen, with a creative and unique menu. A healthy lifestyle can include craft cocktails and fine wine. Ooh, I like that. Always looking for ways to expand and grow, her experience as a personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist fits nicely within her niche as a health-conscious cuisine. In recent years, Marcia has shifted gears and phased out her meal delivery service to work solely as a personal chef. Welcome, Marcia, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jesse. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's super nice to meet you too. And I'm really excited for this because, you and I were talking a little bit offline about how so many people right now, this is going to be one of the first times in their life where they are actually having to put some thought process into planning out a meal or planning out a menu, even beyond just something impulsive, and how that's almost become a lost art in recent time because we can use these things to get everything just shown up and delivered on our doorstep. So, people who are at home right now and they have some time, how would they go about planning out a menu?
Well, so I would like to start by saying, as far as being a health food chef or a health conscious chef, the main thing that I want to express with that is that health is an attitude. It's not a specific type of food group. Okay. So there's a lot of, ideas around what's healthy, what's not healthy. A Big Mac can be healthy. An apple can be healthy. It's all about your vibration. So like not going into this with any sort of guilt around the foods that you're choosing to make at home. With that being said, back to your question. One of the things about meal planning is that, especially if you're going to be opening canned goods of any kind, you want to make sure that you're using the whole thing. And it doesn't have to be in the whole dish. So for example, like let's say you're going to open a can of black beans and make some black bean tacos with some scrambled eggs. Now that could be a little overwhelming because for the most part, the modern person, like you mentioned, like picking up your phone, you can get all of this variety throughout your week. So this is where you're going to have to think about it a little bit, right? So but in that time, so you can take the time to be like, okay, what else could I do with those black beans? Could I throw it into a soup? Could I make a dip out of it? Maybe use that later on in the week and make some nachos or a dip, adding a little lemon or lime, some, fresh garlic or garlic powder. So just like expanding it, especially when it comes to your canned goods. With that being said, I would say use your canned goods last. Use all the fresh food right now. We're not really sure how long this is going to go on. And I'm not trying to make anybody fearful about that either, but just, pull all that fresh food forward. Use your cauliflower, use the greens. Yeah. Don't wait for that. Like that's not your rainy day. Your rainy day are your canned goods and your dry goods.
I love that you started off by saying acknowledging health as a mindset and talking about the Big Mac or the apple. I think that's such an important thing because I can imagine many people are feeling and experiencing maybe some shame right now because they aren't able to have the food they normally would have, or maybe they felt underprepared or not as on top of things as they could have been. And they're grabbing stuff on the shelf in a panic and without really a lot of thought with that. And I think that's such an empowering statement to say is that, no matter what you grabbed and no matter what's in your cupboard, you can treat that as something healthy if you have the mindset about it. And it's about, nurturing and taking care of yourself. And, I think that's such an important thing for people to take away. And you had mentioned too about batch cooking, and sometimes people get in this habit of doing batch cooking. What is batch cooking, and why is it important to avoid doing that?
Well, so it's not that I don't want anyone to do large batch cooking because there's, so I'm single. Let me just put that out there. Available to date after all this is over.
That's good. We'll have the
Just kidding. But what I want to say is that, so I created a whole cooking tutorial last year, and I launched it at the beginning of 2019. And it was really designed for single people. And why I created it that way is because the modern person eats a lot of variety, and most recipes are designed for large families, which is not really indicative of our society right now. We eat a lot of different things. And so I created small batch cooking. So no more than 2 servings of anything. The reason I'm saying now that people really should stay away from batch cooking, unless you absolutely have a large family, or you are still working, you know, you're one of the first responders, or your job, you're going to you work at the grocery store, is that you have time. You have the time to prepare a meal. And because we're all faced with this interruption to our lives where we were so busy before, you've got these huge pockets of time. And even myself, I'm still working, but I'm finding myself sitting a lot. And that's not really great for your health overall, right? To constantly be sitting. So this is allowing you to have a little more activity in your day without having to go somewhere. Right? So if you find a chili recipe that's 2 hours long, make it, you know, see why that's so good. There's a reason why we simmer and braise things for hours and hours and hours, you know, and this is your chance. And also with that, once you've made the meal, sit down at your table, you know, use your nice silverware, use your nice dishes, pull out the wine glasses and pour some, you know, either wine or some mineral water into that, whatever. Like, take the time after you've made this meal that you're having, this small batch, you know, 2 servings of it for you and your partner, or you and your, you know, whoever you live with. You know, take the time to savor it. Turn off the television. You've got so many hours for that to binge. You know, you've got all this free time. So let's fill it up, and let's fill it up with something that's good for us, you know, to do. Just taking a break from the news, right? Getting some exercise, even though that doesn't seem like traditional exercise. Anytime you're moving around, you're exercising. You're expending calories, you know, and you're using your brain, and you can just tune out the world and get into your cooking. I mean, honestly, I just hope, as I said earlier, I just hope people fall in love with cooking. It's so amazing. So I know I'm geeking out over cooking. I love that. You know, that's my thing.
I notice when I cook and my Fitbit's on, I get so much more movement in my day those days. And I love and appreciate your passion you're talking about, because before we went online, you were talking about helping people fall in love with cooking. And I love this description you're talking about here about not just making something quick and doing it as a task to do, but really just embracing, enjoying the process. You know, we have this time, and I think one of the gifts that is going on right now is we're such a uber type A, go, go, go. Every minute of every day has to be filled with something. And now that might be different for many of us, we can have the opportunity to maybe slow down and be present to what's in front of us, and fall in love with this different process, and realize that as we're preparing food and preparing nourishment, it's also kind of an act of self-love, really, right?
Yeah. I mean, just think about all the people that've been working like 2 and 3 jobs, and all of a sudden, I not to minimize anyone's stress about, you know, not having income coming in and everything like that, but just like getting some rest, taking a big, deep breath. Just collectively, the whole world has needed to do it for a long time, right? So,
you know, speaking of that, so talking about food shortages and people kind of scrambling and trying to figure out what they can do, and some people might be on an even tighter budget than they were before and really panicked. What are the absolute basics people should be grabbing? And I mean, you mentioned earlier about eating your fresh vegetables and fruits first, but if somebody's making kind of a triage of what is the absolute essentials they should have, what are the main necessities, whether it's a single or a family of 4, what would that look like for them?
So, I mean, I'm big on soups. So I would say things that you can literally throw in a soup, whatever that would be. That could be frozen. I don't want to tie anybody down, especially I'm reluctant to say X, Y, and Z, because if you go to the store and you can't find that, I don't want anyone to feel like they failed, you know? So, I mean, sure, grains are awesome. Some sort of potato product, sweet potatoes, white potatoes. I know people think, yeah, you can't have potatoes anymore. You know, it's like, potatoes are delicious and full of fiber. You should have some.
I love my potatoes.
You know, and eat the skin. That's where all the really good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think condiments are a great thing to have because that can really, jazz something up. Hot sauce is always amazing. Saul says, if you ruin something or you feel like you ruined something, just throw some hot sauce on there. You'll never know. You'll never, it's like, it's a process. I mean, I've screwed things up, and been like, well, it's like pico de gallo. That's what's going on right now. This dish was supposed to be something else. Generally, I don't do that for my clients. It's just for myself.
That's good. There's a disclaimer.
But so I don't want to make anybody feel stressed out. But if you can find some vegetable stock, chicken stock, things like that, some onions, some garlic, those you can use powders for that. Get a loaf of bread. So let's kind of segue a little bit, if I could, into storage. So
Yes.
a lot of times when we go to the grocery store, especially when we're not feeling like we're not ever going again, we tend to sort of feel like, oh, well, if our food spoils, like, not a big deal. I have a big pet peeve with that. I do not like to waste food at all, because I feel like I just threw my money right out the door, and I'm like, what? No, that's not happening. That's not working for me. So right now, especially with your fresh produce, don't wash it when you get home. Just tuck it away into your crispers, because once you introduce moisture into it, and then if you don't thoroughly dry them, that means that you're introducing moisture into your refrigerator in your crisper, and then it'll get moldy. So, so now's the time. By the way, also cleaning your produce, there's a couple things you can do. The CDC has recommended washing in hot water. You can also make your own vegetable wash, and I'm just gonna show you guys real quick what I do with my little, this guy, sprayer, is I fill it with a little bit of vinegar, and then 1 part of vinegar to 3 parts of water. So for example, that would be 1 tablespoon of vinegar, distilled, and white vinegar, and then 3 tablespoons of water. Okay. And then you just spray it really, really good. Let it soak for about 15 or 20 minutes, rinse really well in cold water, and then go ahead and cook. Or you could dry it and then store it in your crisper. Okay. So that's like really practical advice for that. But so getting back to what else could you buy? You want to think about things that will last, and don't think that you shouldn't get yourself a treat, by the way. So if you love, I like the everything crackers, and today I was at Trader Joe's and they were gone, but I scored and found the pretzels. So I was like, that's good for my mental health right there.
Yeah, Trader Joe's peanut butter pretzels.
By the way, food does make you feel good, and there are specific types of foods that do create a serotonin-like effect on the brain. It tends to be complex carbohydrates, the starchy carbs. So don't feel like right now is not the time to be doing any sort of deprivation diets, okay? So, give yourself good feeling things that make you feel good, because that's going to increase your sense of well-being overall.
I love that. I think that is so important. I love how you keep tying this back into enjoying the food, and then you find food that makes you feel good, because it can be such an enjoyable process and can elevate your mood, which is so important right now, right? Where it's
part of your immunity.
Right. There's 2, I think, viruses happening, where there's this, the corona, but then there's also the fear and the anxiety and stress that's producing. So it's so important that we're taking care of mental, physical, emotional health right now.
Yeah. You
mentioned, you touched on this briefly, and I'm hoping we can circle back to it. I know for me, a lot of my friends, one of their resistances is in regular cooking has been, oh, I don't like the variety, or I want more variety, and I don't like eating the same thing over and over again. I love eating the same thing. I'm great with that. Yeah. But a lot of people, they're so resistant, and so now with limited supply, with things, people are finding themselves not only cooking at home, but they also may find themselves eating a lot of the same stuff, and that can trigger all sorts of things: frustration, anger, upset. I know you mentioned the condiments earlier. What are some ways that people can add some pizzazz and spice into some of the same things they might be eating, so it doesn't feel like the same thing, so they feel like they're still creating something new, even out of the kind of the same staples over and over again?
That's a great question. I would recommend switching out the proteins that you're using. So let's say if you normally make a dish with chicken, switch it out and do tofu. Switch up the ingredients as far as that goes. Increase the heat. If a dish you've always made that has never, has always just had garlic, add some shallot in there. Do little tweaks like that. I think are really helpful. Right now is a great time to go through and figure out family recipes if you have some. When my mom passed away, I was lucky enough to get all of her cookbooks, and she has a lot of handwritten things in there. So it's like I'm not necessarily revisiting those, but it's very comforting to look at my mom's handwriting. I'm a big thing. I have a thing for people, handwritten recipes, especially family ones. I think they're very special. But that also can increase the sense of well-being because you're revisiting hopefully something that was a happier time in your life where someone, was caretaking for you. It doesn't have to be a mom. It could be, it's all types of caretakers and caregivers that we have. But like to revisit some of those dishes. And what's great about that, especially if you're new to cooking and this is all, a bit overwhelming, those recipes from, long ago are generally pretty simple and straightforward. They have, like a protein, maybe one vegetable, some cream or, mushroom soup, something like that. And a lot of stuff like that is still you hopefully can still find on the shelves, or you can get it through Amazon or, one of the delivery services, but it's usually pretty easy and they're often baked. So that's, can take a lot of stress off for people. And they're a little bit larger in size, but it's really easy to just look at the recipe and say, okay, so they want half a cup of this, drop it down to a quarter of a cup, so you can make the adjustments on the ingredients so that it works for you. But it also can hopefully increase your, that sense of comfort. Someone else cooked for you, and that's real. We all love when someone cooks for us.
Would you, and this is totally on the spot, feel free to say no, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I'm just curious, would you be open to maybe sharing one of your mom's recipes with us, and then I can include it when we
absolutely. I just have to look through them. I pulled them out a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, my mom's handwriting. I wish I could call my mom right now.
That's extra special to you. That might be a really cool thing.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
And then I have one other question I want to touch on, maybe two. In the interest of time, I have so many now that the more you're talking, the more questions I have. I love this. I keep loving this idea of the falling in love with cooking. If you could recommend people make just one recipe during this time, one dish that's simple, that's easy, that's manageable for everyone, but is going to not only be nourishing, but maybe help them start to find that love and passion for cooking that you obviously, live, what would that be?
Just one?
Just one. You only have time for one. We could do
I'm such a big fan of soups. They're just so delicious. I have soup for breakfast. I don't even care. So I would say learn to make a soup, and soups are so forgiving. And you can throw, pretty much almost anything in there. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll give you a soup recipe. It's my turmeric ginger soup.
Okay.
You can make it all plant-based, which I do for specific clients. And then I also do it with chicken. So I'll give you guys a couple of options with that. But
Awesome.
It's delicious. It's easy. And you can use any ingredients. It's, but besides the turmeric ginger, you kind of need that. But it's just really, I think soups are, like I said, I think they're just forgiving. You don't have an onion? Oh, well, you need a little more garlic. Oh, you don't have carrots, celery? Oh, well, I've got a whole mushroom soup that is just mushrooms and leeks. That's it.
Wow.
Awesome. So it's like, I feel like soups are something that everyone can boil water. So it's a good place to start. You don't need any vegetable, chicken, or beef stock. You can just use water if you don't have it. So it's very forgiving, and it always ends up tasting delicious. And you can freeze it, so if you need to.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I have so many more questions. I wish we had much more time to do so. But in the interest of time, I have 3 rapid fire questions for you to close out. People are at home right now. Many of them are either quarantined, shelter in place, self-isolating. There's so many different terms right now. I don't know which one is the proper term, but it's one of those or something else. And they are, as we talked about, they have more time. So obviously they're going to start doing some cooking now, especially with this. And if you could recommend one podcast for people to listen to, what would that be?
I don't listen to podcasts. Who
Totally
has time
fine.
for that? They're recommended to me all the time. I wish I had a friend who had a podcast right now because I would totally shout them out. But
That's fine. It's fine. But you know, it's great though. Too. I think.
I'm sorry.
No, apologies. Part of this is really like I want people to see that. You know, sometimes when we're so in our own head in our own life, we don't see world beyond this field of vision. Yeah. And then also, I think sometimes too, we think that. You know, one of the things I've loved about this question and asking people is there's so many different answers you get from I don't listen to, or they listen to these really silly ones. And I love that because then the other thing is sometimes we think that to be able to do these things, we have to do all this other stuff first. And that if you're doing an interview or something like that, you're so regimented, you have everything there. My favorite TV show is South Park. It still is. I love South Park. I would rather watch South Park than anything else. Like, and so, you know, yeah, it's just it's so great. So I love that answer. Movie or documentary you'd recommend people watch?
Just in the interest of it just being where it is, Tickled. Tickled on, I believe it may be HBO, but I think it's Netflix. It's just a wacky, weird thing, and someone else had recommended it, and I was like, wow, it went a whole different way. I was not expecting that.
Okay, awesome. And book you'd recommend people read?
So because my life is very busy, like I think everyone else is, I'm not much of a book reader anymore. I used to be a voracious book reader, but one thing that I read year after year is a book, and it's just a book of ideas, and it's called The Year of Living Consciously. And so they give you an idea each day just to sort of, you know, ground yourself, think about yourself, like what are you doing here? I feel like it gives me a little time to be meditative because I stop each morning before I leave the house and I read, you know, what is going on for March 21st. Or March, you know, which day it is. What day is it? I don't even know.
I don't even know either. I feel like the days
I think it's March
blending together now.
Or no, it's the 21st. But so I, you know, like that's the kind of thing. So I do still read a lot, but I read a lot of articles, and I love medium.com. I don't know if anybody's on there, but I haven't written anything for the site, but I love to read other people's works. And it's a lot of just short essays and, you know, ideas on a wide range of topics.
That's awesome. Everyone, one of the things you've heard me say is one of the keys to getting through this time is don't just let the time pass, but make goals for this time. Make goals for your health, make goals for your business, make goals for your relationship, make goals for your fitness. And as you can see from Marcia's very infectious passion, that there is a lot of joy and love to be derived from cooking. And perhaps one of the goals you can make for yourself during this time is to fall in love with cooking. If love seems like too aggressive of a leap, you know, fall in like with cooking.
I love that.
Yeah, fall in like with cooking. And, you know, I don't know which direction you're supposed to swipe on it, but, you know, swipe the good way for cooking and you know, find some meals. And maybe too, you know, we've talked about ways to build community around this, and, you know, do a cooking time with your friends like this, you know, make it into a little experience where you can make a meal together, even if you're not there, hop on Zoom, hop on Skype, cook together. You know, maybe you do a little happy hour with it, add in the wine and the cocktails. Marcia gave us all permission to enjoy it during this time, remember? So you do the whole thing, cheers with it. And maybe you start a little community bulletin board or something in your neighborhood, and you all share a recipe, and then everybody picks a recipe for that day and you agree to cook it. There's lots of creative ways we can do it. And you can do it by just thinking outside of that box of fear. Remember, fear is very isolating. It's going to keep us locked in. And I hope that from learning from Marcia today, you get an opportunity to expand your horizon and just see what can be possible for you all. So Marcia, thank you so much for today. This was absolutely incredible. I wish we had more time. You have such an infectious passion about what you're doing that it literally, I felt so much joy just hearing you talk about cooking. It makes me want to go make food right now.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. And I want everyone to get through this. And I'm putting up, if it will help anyone, I am putting up recipes on my Facebook page, which
Awesome.
is Clean Food Delivered at Facebook, the whole backslash. And so, if anybody needs help with recipes, I've got some that I'm putting up just really easy stuff. I'm going to give you some recipes, and I'm just here because I am still working, but I'm mostly working from home. So I've got my phone on me like everybody else all day, every day.
Yeah, no, send me over all your links, and then
Okay.
what I'll do is I'll include them and make sure everybody gets access to them too. Yeah, everybody, you want some, obviously this is a lady to follow and learn from, and it's going to make your time with the kitchen all the more enjoyable.
Totally.
Marcia, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too, Jesse.
Oh yeah, we got in a social distance fist bump.
All right.
Right?
Yeah,
Social distance fist
we
bump.
fist bump in the kitchen. We
Yep.
don't shake hands.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye for now.